Go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chelsea Gelinas. I am a realtor with Keller Williams Realty in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I have been in the business about 7 years. I've been with KW for about, going on 5, I guess. And I am here with Liz Barletta from Ligris Law. She is a fantastic real estate attorney. I'm also here with Rick Scherer from Ontomortgage, who is my preferred lender. He's wonderful. If you are looking to buy or invest or refinance, they are your people. So I will let Liz take it from here.
Yeah, so good to be here. Thank you so much. I am a real estate attorney with Ligris and Associates, and been in this business for quite a while. This is my passion. I just do real estate law. I don't sort of dabble in other areas of law, and I'm excited to be chatting with these two wonderful people today.
Yeah, and I'm Rick Scherer. I'm the CEO of Ontomortgage, and yeah, been in this business about 18 years. Used to be the young guy in the industry. Now I'm the old guy. But yeah, really excited to be with you guys today and really answer a lot of questions that a lot of people have questions too. So yeah, really excited to jump in and get started.
Awesome. And Chelsea, maybe you can get the ball rolling with sort of the first thing that I know that Rick and I hear all the time. How does the process get started? Where does the agent come into play?
So that's a great question. I think a lot of people struggle with that question, especially first-time buyers, because it's kind of like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know? So I think really the first point of engagement would be with your lender, because otherwise it's like, hey, I want to buy this fantastic outfit. I'm going to go shopping on Newbury Street, except I just paid all my bills and I have no money. So you don't want to go shopping on Newbury Street and fall in love with that amazing outfit or those beautiful shoes or that handbag or whatever it might be and be like, shucks, I can't actually buy it. A lot of people come to an agent first, and really the first point of contact is a lender, and a reputable lender. And Rick is, he has made miracles happen for me and my clients. So
yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. So yeah, I think certainly you want to know, really what to start to look for. Oftentimes you fall in love with those houses that are a little bit out of your range, but also the other way around. With the dramatic drop in interest rates over the last year and 2 years, the buying power has increased so greatly for people. Where maybe if their budget was $2,000 a month on a principal and interest payment, that would have gotten them a $400,000 mortgage. Well, rates go down a whole percentage point. That goes from $400,000 to about $480,000, just because, and it's the same payment. So certainly interest rates have made such a dramatic drop. Whereas you really want to understand what your comfortable monthly payment means as far as a purchase price. So yeah, Chelsea, I absolutely agree with you.
Important. You have to understand your purchasing power. So that really is the first step, is what can I afford? Where am I comfortable? And that's also a huge one. You might be able to afford something that is not comfortable. So you have to understand what the difference is.
Yeah.
I think it's really important too, that is what you're saying, Chelsea, is the first step, because I feel like a lot of agents don't think of it that way, and it ends up wasting your time. When ends up wasting the buyer's time with hopes that they can afford this home that they really can't. So I think it's so important that and again, it's your experience that tells you that it's important first and foremost to talk to someone like Rick to actually know.
It's most important for the buyer because my time is, that's my business, is my time. And I understand when things don't work out, that's time spent. It's all relative. But for the buyer, it's devastating. So it's really important from an emotional, financial aspect to just understand what you can afford.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing to that, and I have a question for Liz. So one thing that anybody that's listening on this call is always want to know what your comfortable monthly payment is. So if you don't have that number in your head, or if you talk to your partner about it or whatever, it's really a really good number to know, because 9.5 times out of 10, any lender is going to probably approve you for more than you actually feel comfortable spending. So understanding that number, understanding that range is going to really allow you to go in and be confident in knowing that, hey, this is my comfortable monthly payment. and it's going to equivalent to a purchase price of X for me. And that really gives Chelsea that ability to really hone into that price range and make sure you're not looking at properties outside your range.
Absolutely.
Question for Liz, actually, because we get this a lot. First of all, it's like, well, wait a second. Why do I need an attorney? I'm from Pennsylvania or I'm from Florida, and we don't have attorneys up there. Why do I need an attorney? And they also want to know, when do you get involved with in the transaction?
Awesome. Great question. So yeah, it's especially for my out-of-staters or people who have had friends who've purchased in other states. They think it's unique and questioning the reason why we are involved, but it's actually a decision of the state legislature. So they've decided that the actual closing, the process of closing, certifying title is what they deem to be the practice of law. So that's why an attorney in Massachusetts has to represent the bank in a closing versus a title company, which is what I think there are probably maybe 4 states that have attorneys involved. The rest are all title companies. So it's definitely a unique question for a lot of people from coming out of state. In terms of when we get involved, so that's really sort of a question more for the agent and how they like to set up their sort of team. So sometimes we work with agents where they will introduce us prior to the offer even being submitted. So, and it could just be a client specific thing too. Maybe they have a client that has a lot of questions, or there's terminology that they want to add to the offer that's a little bit more complex and they just want to have a second set of eyes. So in those instances, we are sometimes introduced prior to you actually submitting an offer. But I would say the majority of the time we are actually introduced once the offer is accepted, because the next step in that whole process after an inspection, if you chose to do one, is the purchase and sale agreement, which is a document that is prepared by the seller's attorney. So instead of a fill in the blank form that's about 2 to 3 pages long, depending on how many contingencies, you're looking at a 15 to 20 page long Word document where every word can literally be negotiated. So it's definitely something that's so important to have an attorney involved in. And I think I answered your question, but basically the majority of the time after the offer is accepted, that's when we do get involved. And maybe just to kind of throw it back to you, Rick, because I think it's so important for people to understand that it's so sad to be sort of house poor. And that's the situation that I think a lot of people get in, especially in a crazy market where they're, maybe submitting offers over asking. But there's ways to handle your mortgage planning process. And that's your forte. You are able to really sit with a client and make that work and make them understand the whole process. So I think there's that misconception still out there that you have to put 20% down to buy a home. Maybe you can talk to that, the type of programs out there and that flexibility.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest misnomers in the industry. I heard some statistic like 70% of people still feel that you need to have 20% to put down. So we as an industry have a lot of work to do to educate the consumer, right? So yeah, I would probably say in my purchase pipeline right now, I would say 65% of those clients are putting less than 20% down. So there's such great products out there and programs. One of the big dirty words in the industry for a very long time was PMI. Excuse me, that stands for private mortgage insurance. And it was kind of a dirty word because it was kind of expensive, right? And so everybody was like, oh, you got to stretch and you got to put that 20% down. Well, that's just not the case anymore. Private mortgage insurance has become very inexpensive. And there's 2 different ways that you can pay private mortgage insurance. One way is you pay it as a line item cost on your bill, right? So principal, interest, taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance. And it depends on, credit score, what type of property you're purchasing, what your debt to income ratio is. So there's a lot that goes into what it is, but it's in the scheme of things, it's come down a credible amount in fees. One other new way that we do a lot of mortgage insurance now is what's called lender paid mortgage insurance. Simply what that means is instead of having that line item on your bill every month, we just increase your interest rate by a little bit. So if rates were at 2.5%, hypothetically, and you put 5% down, well, maybe we give you, instead of a 2.5, we give you a 2.75% rate. So now you're just paying that spread of the interest rate. It's really your fee. And more times than not, it's a cheaper way to finance your mortgage than have that fee on your as a line item on your mortgage. I'm giving you enough just to be dangerous here. And our job as mortgage professionals is to really weigh out the different options. Is it make sense for your goals and objectives to do lender paid or buyer paid? We've actually had times where we've negotiated the seller buying out the PMI for the buyer. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can structure it, but in a nutshell,
when you're done,
what's that?
Can I just touch on that real quick when you're done?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, there's a plenty of different mortgage products out there. You have zero money down for like USDA and veterans out there that have access to the VA loan, 3% down, 5% down, and so on. So yeah, if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for that 20% to save, I'll tell you right now, it's the time to jump in now and at least understand your options, because you could, in a year from now, when that rate goes up a whole percentage point, guess what happens to your buying power? You lose $80,000. So so Chelsea, yeah.
No, but just to touch on that a little bit, PMI is like just to put a spotlight on it, the way you kind of phrased it before, it's sort of like a scary line item for people. It's like, oh, I have to put 20% down because PMI, blah, blah, blah. So am I wrong in saying that at a certain equity point that goes away?
Yeah, great point. So if you have it as a line item on your bill, it does go away. You can request it to be dropped once you've hit 80% loan to value. So now you have that 20% equity in there. It drops automatically when you hit 78%. So if you totally forget, that does drop. Now, if you do lender paid mortgage insurance, and you've paid it down 80%, you can't drop your interest rate. The interest rate is what it is. So it does come down to some planning. In other words, if you look at the regular way a mortgage amortizes, and if you're in it for 5 years, it could take you 7 to 8 years to make that mortgage payment to hit that 20%. Now, if you don't plan on being in the home for 7 or 8 years, if you know that you're going to refinance the house in 5 or 6 years for whatever reason, then it doesn't matter, because you're never going to pay it down to drop it. So sometimes it's better just taking that lower payment up front. But again, if someone's putting 15% down, they only have that 5%, then yeah, usually we'll look at just doing the monthly, because you only have 5% left to go. Then you can drop it. You don't have to refinance, and you're in good shape.
Awesome. In a nutshell, there's like tons of options. So
yeah,
especially for those first-time buyers out there, or those people that are renting, who are kind of like my favorite, because it's so cool to like make that dream come true for people. Like, if you think you're just stuck in this crappy rental that's costing you an arm and a leg every month, and you don't feel like your needs are being met, and your landlord sucks and he's a jerk and whatever, you need to talk to somebody like Rick, because you might actually not even know what your capacity is for buying. He might blow your mind.
Hey, it's happened once or twice. Chelsea, one of the things I'm hearing, that a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines because they hear it is a seller's market, and they're like, hey, I don't want to get involved, or I don't, I'm too afraid, or,
That's dangerous terminology, because for me, there is no such thing as a seller's market. There's no such thing as a buyer's market. Is just the market. The market just is. And you just have to play. It's sort of just, there are rules. It's like a game kind of, but everybody has a piece in the game and everybody can play. You just have to know where you stand and how to play.
Yeah. So what kind of things are you doing to help your clients get under agreement in this competitive market?
It depends on where their price point is, where they're looking. There's a few different strategies you can take. Of course, probably a lot of people know that you can drop an inspection. I don't obviously recommend it because it is risky, but it is a tool that I've used in the past. If we're talking about a seller's market, as you mentioned, or as you coined, I would coach my clients to say like, oh, Rick says I can afford, $450,000. Okay, perfect. Well, let's look at properties that have been sitting at $469,000 for 80 days. Maybe we should look at those. It's not always the fresh, hot ones that are the right ones. Sometimes you have to step back and say like, okay, well, maybe somebody didn't see something here that that is, like a diamond in the rough kind of, just keep your eyes open and don't have tunnel vision, basically. Have peripheral vision.
That's so important. And it's so funny too. Like if you think about even a couple of years ago when, homes could be on the market for like 60 days and it really wasn't like a negative. Now it's like on the market for 2 weeks and it's like something's wrong with it. And so oftentimes if it doesn't go very quickly, you do have a lot more room to kind of negotiate. That's a great point, Chelsea.
Yeah, I think that's important. I try to make sure my clients understand that.
Yeah.
It can be frustrating, especially if you've been beat out multiple times. And that can happen. I try to preface that, especially in a competitive market with a new buyer. I try to make sure that expectation is set that like, hey, we might be put through the ringer a couple times, just so you know.
Yeah. That's huge because I think that one of the most important things for any home buyer out there listening is having an agent like Chelsea who's going to be real with you, because I feel like it's, it's really important to have that expectation that things could be awesome. And like a weekend, we find a place and they accept it and you bid under asking and like they took all of your contingencies, but that's maybe not going to happen. So I think it's so important to have that expectation set, because if anything does go wrong or apart from that, like cookie cutter perfect transaction, it's only going to make that transaction negative if you don't know that that's a possibility from the get-go. So that's huge that that's part of your sort of consult with your buyers.
And I would say that any buyer out there that's listening to this or anybody that's getting ready to buy, it's really important that your team, your agent, your lender, and your attorney all set clear expectations with you from the get-go. You want to have a team that everybody's on the same page and they educate you in the same capacity on every given part of the transaction, from the offer and how the offer is going to work and how it's going to be structured and why it's going to be structured the way it is, to your lender helping you understand what your capacity is for affordability and how the transaction is going to work and what the interest rate is, to your attorney giving you expectations of how the purchase and sale process is going to go, and how. Yeah. Liz, just to put this question out there too, I get a lot of buyers, especially going back to out-of-state buyers, who are like, why do I need an attorney? Mm-hmm. Isn't a purchase and sale agreement standard? Why do I need an attorney? Can you, how would you respond?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always do with new buyers is I actually call them and talk to them before we sort of get engaged in the whole process. And I walk them through what my role is and how I can help them. Because I think, like both of you have touched on, a lot of people are just kind of surprised that there's an attorney involved in the process at all. And so to me, especially since I work with so many first-time home buyers, having them just get hooked up with an attorney, but not having that interaction with them and to explain sort of why you're going to be able to help them and guide them through the process and have that ear and that cell phone number that they can text with a question is such a huge point of having a really positive experience. So the reason more than anything, besides the requirement for us to close for the banks, for you to have your own buyer attorney is crucial. I think I touched a little bit about it earlier, but it's not a standardized. Some attorneys start with a standardized form. There are standard forms out there, but the majority of the time, attorneys for the seller are preparing a document that's 100% seller skewed. Very, very few attorneys out there start with more of a reasonable document. They start with what's in the best interest of their clients. So if you are, signing a document that has all of the provisions one-sided, and if something happens, obviously some transactions are pretty seamless and you can close and no big deal that you had a seller-sided agreement. But in a situation that something should arise that you didn't have an attorney make certain changes to that agreement, can really be detrimental to you, and also, more than anything, your deposit money and your rights as a buyer. So it's really crucial to have someone take a look at that and not just slap a generic writer on it, which unfortunately a lot of people do these days, but actually read what the seller presented, make changes that are important, and add in provisions that are relevant to the agreement. So, it's just, sorry.
No, go finish. I'm sorry. I want to add something to that too.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So obviously being in the business as long as I have seen a lot of there's a lot of attorneys out there, right? Everybody sits and takes the bar. It's great, right? However, real estate law is a very particular line of practice. So if you have cousin Vinny, who is a litigation attorney, or your Aunt Marie, who is a divorce attorney, they want to help you out. I'll promise you they're not going to be helping you out. Because at the end of the day, you really need a closing attorney, a real estate attorney, not someone that's going to be in court all day, not someone that dabbles in a bunch of different areas, that literally does real estate for a living. Because as Liz said, you're going to have riders. When I sold my house about 10 years ago, the buyer came in, and again, he had a cousin Vinny helping him, and they just stamped our purchase and sale as approved. And I said, well, this shouldn't be, I almost wanted to call the buyer and say, go find someone to read the document. So it's so imperative to make sure that you're working with a real estate attorney like Liz. And because if not, the deal will, I shouldn't say will, the deal could blow up over very small things because they feel they want to litigate every T and litigate every I.
So just a little,
I try to make a comparison that it's like having a good doctor. You wouldn't go to an eye doctor for an ear infection.
Right.
Why would you hire a criminal attorney or any other type of attorney to do your real estate transaction? Why wouldn't you just hire a real estate attorney? It's so much sense.
Yeah. And it's funny. I have two little tidbits on this. So I recently had a deal that unfortunately did fall apart because the buyer, I was representing the seller, and the buyer was trying to add in things that are just so not typical. And my seller just wouldn't agree to it because, again, they have someone else behind them. And unfortunately, I bet these buyers are incredibly disappointed and probably didn't even know that this, what he was trying to add was sort of the deciding factor in us, not continuing. And they loved this property. So it's, and again, he was a family friend who, this is not his day job. So the other sort of kind of crazy story that I have is I had a client who came to me on their second buy around. And when they were first time home buyers, they went to that family friend, and other areas of the law do charge hourly. So for the most part, some attorneys out there for real estate do still charge hourly, but the majority of us all charge flat fees. So from the get-go what to expect to pay. And there's no hidden surprises at the end. And this poor first-time home buyer, using their friends of the family, whatever, ended up getting a $5,000 bill after closing that this guy charged hourly for. And so not only did he probably just rubber stamp the PNS, what Rick was saying, but was charging crazy amounts of money for it. So it's so important to have someone who lives and breathes this work on a day-to-day basis, for sure.
And to just touch on that a little bit more, I feel bad for that buyer because that their agent might have been a family friend, but the importance of not always working with family friends is that
totally
you can fire someone you don't know. You can't fire your friend.
100%. And actually, Chelsea, this is a good starting point to chat about if, hopefully everybody who's watching this is calling you. But if, somebody's out there who maybe already has an appointment with someone else, what are the questions that they should be asking an agent?
That's a great question. And it's a little bit of a tricky one because it's super personal, but you want to ask your agent, what are their experiences with positive transactions? What are their experiences with negative transactions? More importantly, what are their experiences with negative transactions? They probably won't know what should I expect. That's your job as an agent to say, here's what you should expect, or here's what could happen that could potentially be unexpected. I wouldn't say, the standard questions like, how many years have you been in the business? Sort of irrelevant because every year and every transaction is different. So I could be in the business for, 30 years and still stumble upon something that's completely new because every transaction is different. And I think that's what's so important. I think it's important to ask your agent what their communication style is, how often they're willing to communicate. Are they available all the time? Again, that's another expectation that should be set. And I think it's important to educate your clients to say, like, listen, I'm going to be an expert for you. I am not a ball and chain slave. I'm not here to unlock doors. I'm here to educate you and help you through this process and make sure that you have the best, most positive outcome. And sometimes that's not always going to swing in their favor. Going back to a seller's market, sometimes they're not always going to get everything they want. So again, it all goes back to expectations. And I think really the only question you need to ask your agent is, what can I expect? How available are you? And what level of dedication do you have to me as a client? I think that's really what's most important.
Yeah, I'll just add to that you're a full-time real estate agent. This is something that you don't do on the weekends. This is something that, that this is what your career is, right? Because again, to get your real estate license, the bar is kind of low. You go take some classes and take a test. Not a lot of heavy lifting as far as that goes. But definitely, are you full time? This is what you do for a living, and it's always a gut, right? Do I click with this person? Do I mesh with them? Would I go have a glass of wine or a beer with this person? It's really important out there too, because you might spend a little bit of time with them as you kind of navigate this real estate market.
Absolutely. And Rick, that sort of ricochets my question is, what should your clients ask you, or what you want them to ask you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for mortgage lenders, at the end of the day, we sell a can of beans on the shelf, right? It's a commodity, right? A 30-year mortgage. If I was in my office in Framingham, I could look out the window and I could see 3 different places that can give someone a 30-year fixed mortgage. So it really is asking questions that would separate out a true mortgage planner. Like, I've got mortgage planner on my tag, on my description, because that's what we do. It's always not always just a 30-year fixed mortgage. It's actually digging in and finding out, what are your goals? What are your objectives? How long do you plan on being in the home? Is this a starter home? Is this they're gonna bury you in the backyard, right? How long do you plan on being there? What's your comfortable monthly payment? And really uncovering as much context for that client, with that client, as possible, to then go into your bag of tricks and go, hey, I've got 3 different products that I think might fit what you're looking to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put them side by side in an easy, we call it a total cost analysis. And I'm going to show you every product, the cost on a monthly basis, 60 months and 15 years. So you can clearly go, yeah, I want the 5% down mass housing loan. Like, that one makes the most sense for me because of X, Y, and Z. So, I want people to understand that there's a lot of order takers out there. Like, they're just going to stick you in that mortgage. Yep, you're a 30-year fixed, but and we're not using a lot of these right now, but there's a thing called adjustable rate mortgages. Got a real bad rap in the downturn there, because a lot of subprime lenders used ARMs. But nowadays, they're actually a really great tool for someone who knows they're not going to be in the house for longer than that ARM period. So now, the 30-year fixed mortgage is a little bit cheaper than the adjustable rate, so no one's taking the risk. But that will start as mortgage rates start going up in the next year. You're going to start to see those different products. So, it's really getting clear on what you want, and then talking to a mortgage professional and being really clear on what that looks like, and having them give you some options back, not just kind of stick you into the standard 30-year fixed box, because it could be a 28-year mortgage that would actually fit you better. So anyway, it's just making sure you're going to get the attention and the product knowledge that you deserve.
Absolutely. And just one more point to that is just, instead of asking me what my clients ask me, I want to just put it out there to any buyers that are entering the market, not what you should be asking your agent, but what your agent should be saying to you. Is your agent should sit back, shut up, and listen. That's really what you want. They need to listen to you. So that's really the most important thing. They shouldn't need to sell themselves, because like Rick said, if you guys jive, if it's somebody that you'd break bread with and have a beer, then that's really what's most important, because that's how you know they're going to have your best interest in mind, rather than trying to sell themselves.
Absolutely. I think that's true with the entire team too. Having that person, that group that all meshes well together, because that's huge. Where every professional understands their role, what they're supposed to be doing, and how they communicate with each other is such an important thing. And it's all starts with Chelsea. So I think we're getting close to the end of our time here, but it was so nice chatting with you guys. And I really encourage everybody who's watching this to reach out to Chelsea, have that one-on-one conversation with her, have her walk you through the process, because you're in great hands with her for sure.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Liz. Same to both of you. You guys are rock stars.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It was great talking with you guys.
Great chatting with everyone.
Happy weekend.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.